Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. He humiliated and slapped her, without knowing that she was the daughter of the Army's chief general. Washington, D.C., a mild and peaceful Saturday morning enveloped the U.S. Capitol. The sun, still low on the horizon, cast a golden light on the ancient facades of the red brick and white stone buildings, silent witnesses to the city's many histories. The air was fresh, laden with the mingled scents of freshly ground coffee and fallen autumn leaves. Evelyn Carter, 27, had just stepped out of a yellow taxi. Her steps were calm, almost measured, as she walked toward the small, popular cafe that opened onto a bustling street, a mix of tourists and locals. She wore a simple, elegant outfit, perfectly tailored beige trousers, a light blue blouse with slightly rolled-up sleeves, and a discreet handbag slung over her shoulder. Nothing in her appearance betrayed the extraordinary bond that united her with one of the most powerful men in the country. Her face, with its soft but determined features, bore the mark of a quiet dignity, forged by years of strict upbringing and high standards, but also by the fierce will to build herself. One would have hardly guessed that she was the only daughter of General William Carter, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, a national hero respected as much for his charisma as for his exemplary career. For Evelyn, this weight was both a legacy and a burden. She had grown up in a home where the principles of honor, sacrifice, and discipline were taught from a young age, but she had also learned to cultivate humility and discretion. She wasn't one to boast or claim any favors associated with her name. Instead, she had chosen to forge her own path, asserting her identity far from the spotlight imposed by her father's rank. After graduating with a degree in psychology, Evelyn decided to dedicate herself to a cause close to her heart, helping veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Working in a civilian support and reintegration program allowed her to combine her family's military heritage with a humane, empathetic, and almost therapeutic approach. That Saturday, she was just passing by, in a hurry but calm, eager to meet up with a longtime friend to share a simple and warm moment. She had no idea that in a few minutes, her world would suddenly turn upside down, due to the disproportionate reaction of a man in uniform who knew neither her name nor her story, and who would unleash an unexpected storm. As Evelyn crossed the threshold of the cafe, a sudden sensation seized her arm. A firm, almost aggressive hand grabbed her roughly. "Hey, you! Show me your security badge. You don't belong here." The voice was harsh, uncompromising. Evelyn slowly turned her head to face the man who had just called out to her. He was a private security guard, identifiable by his dark uniform and discreet earpiece, but his hard gaze betrayed obvious impatience. His name was Frank Delaney, a white man in his 50s, bald, with a square jaw and an imposing stature. Employed by a security company contracted by the city, he had a reputation for being quick and sometimes brutal. Evelyn, surprised but perfectly in control of her calm, replied in a calm voice. "I'm here for an appointment. I don't think I need a badge." She tried to gently pull her arm from his grip, hoping to defuse the tension with reason. But Delaney didn't see it that way. In his eyes, Evelyn was nothing more than a black woman, out of place, an intruder in a neighborhood he considered reserved for a certain elite. Without really thinking, he raised his voice, becoming more threatening. "Don't you understand? We don't let just anyone in here. Show me that badge, now." A small group of passers-by had stopped about 10 meters away, some curious, others suspicious. Evelyn's face remained impassive, but her eyes betrayed a glimmer of disappointment mixed with suppressed anger. When she tried to gently pull away, Delaney lost patience. Without warning, he raised his hand and slapped her hard, a sharp blow that echoed through the street. The impact made Evelyn's head spin. Her cheek burning, she felt the heat of humiliation flood her entire being. A heavy silence fell over the witnesses. Some took out their phones, shocked, to immortalize the moment. Others, petrified, did not dare to intervene. Delaney, confident, chin high, said in a contemptuous tone. "We know you, you provocateurs. You think you can do whatever you want. This is not your place." Evelyn didn't scream, didn't complain. Instead, she looked up at him, her gaze icy and penetrating. A calm, terrifying coldness that shot through Delaney, unsettling him. "You just made a monumental mistake," she said, her voice low, firm, and full of determination. In that suspended moment, the scene was about to change, without anyone yet knowing to what extent. Barely a few minutes had passed since the brutal slap when the roar of a black car echoed down the street. The vehicle, a massive, armored SUV with tinted windows, stopped abruptly in front of the cafe, immediately attracting the attention of passers-by. Two soldiers in perfectly tailored uniforms stepped out with military precision, their boots clicking on the pavement. Behind them, a man of imposing stature and majestic bearing appeared. His navy blue uniform shimmered in the sunlight, adorned with stars and gold braid that signaled his high rank. It was General William Carter, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, an iconic figure in the military and the country as a whole. The general's gaze was hard, almost cold. His face, marked by years of responsibility and combat, expressed both anger and determination. He walked with a firm step, his eyes never leaving his daughter, who stood there, her face reddened by the slap, but holding firm, standing with indomitable dignity. "Evelyn, are you okay?" he asked in a deep voice, softer this time, betraying his fatherly concern. Evelyn, though surprised by the sudden arrival, simply nodded. Her lips pursed to contain the pain, both physical and mental. The general then turned slowly to Agent Delaney. His gaze was a silent challenge. "Are you the one who raised your hand to my daughter?" Delaney took a step back, his face growing pale. The weight of the situation, and especially the identity of the victim, suddenly hit him with a force he hadn't anticipated. I didn't know. She didn't say who she was." He stammered, trying to justify his actions, as if to apologize clumsily. The general, impassive, replied in a thunderous voice that made the air around him shudder. "She doesn't need to say who she is to be treated with respect." The atmosphere on the street instantly turned cold. Passers-by fell silent, aware of the gravity of the moment. Behind the general, the two soldiers took up positions, ready to intervene. Emergency protocol had just been activated. Without further ado, Delaney was disarmed by a local security officer and escorted aside, while the general, imposing and dignified, approached to support his daughter. It was a 16-year-old boy, Malik Thompson, who filmed the scene with his phone from the sidewalk across the street. He had seen the altercation from the beginning and, like many young people of his generation, he had the instinct to document what he thought was unjust. What he captured that day would shake an entire country. In the video, the slap was clearly visible, but also, and above all, Evelyn's reaction. No shouting. No outbursts. No insults. Only a powerful silence, a stare straight into her attacker's eyes, and this calm, chilling sentence. "You just made a monumental mistake." When Malik posted the video on X, formerly Twitter, he added this caption. "He humiliated and slapped her, without knowing that she was the daughter of the Army's chief general." In less than an hour, the video had surpassed 100,000 views. Within 3 hours, it had gone viral on every platform. Comments poured in, split between outrage, admiration for Evelyn, and anger at Delaney. But what left its mark beyond the scandal was Evelyn's posture, her restraint. Her unwavering calm. The fact that she never mentioned her last name, that she didn't demand special treatment, that she didn't shout out her parentage to get out of it. She stood there, straight and dignified, one hand on her cheek, the other on her bag, looking the man in the eye as if he were no longer a threat, but the symbol of a sick system. The 24-hour news channels replayed the footage, dissected by experts, journalists, and sociologists. Talk shows discussed it all night long. The international press seized on it. The next morning, a press conference was announced, attended by General William Carter and his daughter. In the Pentagon's main hall, filled with cameras and microphones, Evelyn Carter spoke. She wore a plain black jacket and matching pants. Her hair was pulled back, her gaze was steady, and her voice calm. "What I experienced yesterday was nothing exceptional. Every day, Black women are stopped, humiliated, assaulted in the street, in stores, in buildings, without anyone protecting them. Yesterday, I was lucky enough to be recognized, but what about the others? Those who don't have a father general, no cameras, no witnesses. A murmur ran through the room. The journalists were feverishly taking notes. Evelyn continued, implacable. Today, I want to use this visibility to make this stop. For everyone else. Because that slap wasn't just an isolated incident. It's a symptom of a system of constant suspicion, of latent racism, of abuse of power disguised as security. It's not an exception. It's a pattern. And it's time to end it. At her side, General Carter remained silent. But his gaze on his daughter betrayed immense pride, that of a father who, despite all his titles, knew that true courage lay there, standing before the cameras, in the simple, sincere words of a woman wounded but standing strong. The conference had a shock-wave effect. Public figures, journalists, artists, senators, published messages of support. Several retired generals, veterans and active officers published an open letter denouncing discriminatory behavior within civilian institutions. Black women's associations also spoke out, inviting Evelyn to join them in their struggles. Rallies took place in several cities across the country. And for the first time in a long time, the country was listening. Not because she was the general's daughter, but because she had dared to speak, calmly, firmly, on behalf of those no one was listening to. Frank Delaney's arrest was immediate. Handcuffed in front of the cameras, escorted by law enforcement, he was taken to the station under the silent gaze of dozens of witnesses, some still shocked, others furious. The accusations were serious: aggravated assault with discriminatory circumstances, excessive use of force in the exercise of a private function, racial harassment in public spaces. He was indicted within 48 hours. Fired on the spot by the security company he had worked for over a decade, his name became synonymous with abuse of power and systemic racism. Federal prosecutors, under public pressure, announced they would treat the case as exemplary case of security drift. But the matter quickly went beyond the punishment of Frank Delaney. Under pressure from the media, citizen movements, and even some branches of the military, a commission of inquiry was established by the Department of Homeland Security. Its conclusions were clear: the private security sector suffered from a serious lack of ethical training, supervision, and regular checks. The President of the United States, in a solemn address, announced a series of unprecedented reforms. Creation of a mandatory federal certificate for all private security agents working on public or government sites. Mandatory training in de-escalation, intercultural psychology and combating racial prejudice, supervised by psychologists and civil rights associations. Establishment of a national register listing complaints and reports against agents, accessible to employers and citizens alike. In the months that followed, several hundred contracts were re-evaluated. Dozens of employees were suspended or reassigned. For many, the Evelyn Carter affair marked a turning point. For her part, Evelyn did not remain silent. Refusing offers of sensational interviews or lucrative media contracts, she decided to do it her own way. With a small team of lawyers, activists, and psychologists, she founded the Carter Foundation for Justice. Its objective: support, defend and assist victims of discriminatory violence, whether physical, institutional or psychological. The foundation quickly set up a national listening and reporting hotline, available 24/7. Of the psychological intervention cells for women attacked or humiliated in public spaces. And legal defense fund to help victims to take legal action. In less than a year, the foundation received more than 40,000 reports. It established branches in 15 states and collaborated with several universities to organize conference series on structural racism and urban safety. Away from the hustle and bustle of social media, Evelyn became a respected figure, a calm and firm voice in national debates. She was invited before Congress, where she gave a remarkable speech. This country has built powerful institutions, but now it must build a culture of respect. The most dangerous weapon isn't always a gun. Sometimes it's a look, a presumption, a hand raised against someone you don't want there. His words resonated beyond borders. She was invited to speak at the United Nations during a special session on human rights and racial violence. Here again, she rejected pathos or anger. She spoke of balance, dignity, and transformation. The wound left by the slap never completely faded. Evelyn carried it like an inner scar. But she used it as a strength, a constant reminder of the fight ahead. Rather than television sets, she chose high schools in disadvantaged neighborhoods, the rehabilitation centers, the support groups with veterans, the very people she had accompanied long before her name became known. She refused to be an icon. She simply called herself useful. 1 year to the day after the events, the President of the United States presented him with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the country's highest civilian honor. In his speech, he said, "Evelyn Carter reminded us that true strength lies in self-control, clear-sightedness, and the refusal to be indifferent. She transformed humiliation into a lever for justice. She embodies what America can become." A few months later, he attempted to publicly apologize through a conservative media outlet. He said he regretted his actions, called it an error of judgment, and said he wanted to meet Evelyn to tell her he had changed. But Evelyn refused. In a brief statement, she responded, "Forgiveness belongs to everyone. Justice is collective. And it follows its course." Delaney was given an 18-month suspended prison sentence, 200 hours of community service in anti-racism programs, and banned from holding any security or public order position. As for Evelyn, she continued her mission, with the same calm voice, the same moral rigor, and that light in her eyes, that of people who have seen injustice up close, and have chosen not to turn away from it. He humiliated and slapped her, without knowing that she was the daughter of the Army Chief General.